is Nicole Calhoun with SC Calhoun Consulting, and thank you for joining me here today. Today, I am starting a new video series, and this one is specifically on diversity and inclusion, but from the standpoint of can we do to move forward? There's been so much activity going on in the last few weeks, and we can understand why. We've seen the unfortunate death of George Floyd. We've seen the reaction to it. I think people are learning that it's more than just George Floyd. The reaction represents so much more to the African American community. But also what we're seeing is organizations are really jumping in, and they're recognizing that their employees need something, that they have a segment of employees that are hurting right now. And there's been lots of talks at some of these organizations as a result, but we're left with what do we do next? So that's what this video series is about. And I have my first person, Chris Robinson, who has agreed to join me. And I'm going to read to you a little bit of Chris's bio. So Chris is the founder of R3 Coaching, which is a company dedicated to helping individuals and businesses achieve their personal and business growth goals through speaking, group training, and one-on-one coaching. Chris is an international speaker who has enthralled crowds as large as 4,500 and trains small groups inside of companies weekly. He's dedicated his life to enhancing others by speaking and teaching on leadership and personal development. But the biggest thing that the real reason I invited Chris on here today is because Chris is the executive vice president. So basically, he's the top guy of the John Maxwell team of coaches and trainers. And Chris is a phenomenal leader, a phenomenal mentor, and he is basically moving a large ship forward. And what's unique about this team is that we have people all over the globe. So when we talk about diversity and inclusion, I think this team represents that. So thank you, Chris, for joining.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And I think you said it best. I mean, when we take a look at the John Maxwell team, it truly does represent a large spectrum of color, of gender, of background, of people that just want to make a difference with people that want to make a difference. And so I couldn't be more proud to be a part of the team. And I couldn't be more proud to be here with you on this very first show. I can't wait. So let's jump into it.
All right. So as I said, many of the large organizations are having these conversations, but I think what some of the things that may not be happening is trickling down into those medium and small organizations. And the conversation that is needed around the response that we've seen, the response to the protest, the rioting, which I think we both agree, we don't believe that the rioting isn't necessarily the right path, but it seems like it's what's gotten the attention. But what can some of the smaller and medium-sized organizations do to start these conversations? Some of the leaders, I'm not sure they're all equipped to be able or feel comfortable to be able to do that. So my first question, that's my first question to you, what can some of those leaders do to prepare themselves?
Yeah, well, I think that it starts off taking a look at, obviously I don't condone any of the rioting or anything of that nature, but I understand it. Okay, now I know that may sound crazy. It's like I don't condone it, but I understand it. And, and I think that, that's a way that people are expressing themselves, not the right way, but I understand it. And so, with protesting as well too, again, I was laughing as I was listening to Steve Harvey this morning. He's like, protesting is a young man's game. He said, protesting's a little different today because you got to learn how to run. You got to be able to throw. You got to be able to understand how to, mask yourself from tear gas. It's a different game. And I think that we can all approach it. There's many different ways to engage, to, stand up or speak up or to get into the conversation about this dialogue now like there never has been before. So I think that there's people that could be watching saying, well, hey, you have to be out in the streets to make it happen. Or you got people saying, hey, you shouldn't be out in the streets to make it happen. All of those things play a part in it, but you got to see what's a fit for you. For me personally, I find myself, and I believe that my space is inside of a boardroom influencing influencers. And so these conversations, these dialogues that you're talking about, I'm having these conversations with companies right now of, hey, look, our employees are starting to interact on Facebook and it's getting ugly. We just want to stay out of it. How do we create space for this? And I believe that we have to address the topic head on and create a space for people to talk about it. And we have to moderate. So we've got to become better facilitators of conversation, saying, hey, look, this isn't right, this isn't wrong, but we have people inside of our organization that have different views and opinions. I think now more than ever, what these recent incidents have created is a space and a dialogue to actually talk about these things more than ever before. Now, we've had opportunities to do it before, but watching George Floyd for 8 minutes, 46 seconds, I think what happened was this has opened up a dialogue like never before. And we've seen something that was, what we would call so inhumane, and not any human could look at it and go, well, that wasn't so bad, or, that was okay, or, I can see what happened. There's not any gray in that one. And so this particular situation has opened up dialogue like it never has before. And so we have to take advantage of it, because it's existed inside the organization that you have, because everybody's talking about it, but nobody's talking about it. So we might as well open it up. Let's talk about it, have those conversations, and have this dialogue around these topics.
Yes, Chris, and I agree with you. I do believe you have to be, you have to find your place in how are you going to become a part of the change? What role are you going to play? I'm one of those people, I don't like crowds. So if I see anything happening, I'm going in the opposite direction.
That way.
But this what I'm doing and what we're doing right now, this is where I feel like I can make a difference, and so I enjoy doing this as well. So we've had the conversations, and I think that organizations are beginning to see, wow, our employees have been carrying some of this baggage after every situation that has gone on, right? I think we're finding allies. We're finding people that, well, I think we've always had allies, but I think maybe they've not always known what to do. And some of the questions I'm asked is, how can I help?
Yeah.
How can I help? And so what would your answer be to how can
Yeah.
they help?
Well, I've had the privilege. Obviously, I lead at a very, very high level, and I get a chance to lead, influence, one of the largest leadership organizations on the planet, if not the largest. And prior to, when the George Floyd incident happened, that entire weekend, I think that Mark Cole, the CEO, did something that was very valuable and very helpful. Was that we probably had over a 2.5 hour call of just talking about, race, and talking about, hey, what are you feeling right now? Tell me about some of these things. And we had very candid conversations, open conversations that I've never had before in my life, where I've shared some of the weight that I carry, as an African American in the boardroom, as an African American that's ascending and leading, people of all different races, and, the weight and the pressure of that. He had that same type of conversation with Lane Jones, our branding director for the John Maxwell team. They spent 2.5, 3 hours on the phone call, which then led to John Maxwell changing his message on Monday. When he was pre-scheduled to teach on one thing, he shifted to teach on another topic, that was more relevant to what was going on, not for the sake of being relevant, but to give a voice to those people that they heard that weekend that were of color. And when I think about the impact of that, being able to shift a person's platform who it influences millions of people, versus me being out there yelling, like, the difference in that was significant to me. So for those that are asking, hey, what can I do? It starts with listening to understand, and not listening to just response, going, okay, great, I got it, let me go out and do this. But listening to understand. And I think that can really go a long way in asking the employees, well, hey, how are you feeling? When have you ever felt that I've done something that may be out of context, or And you got to be prepared, because if you open that door, you may hear something that you didn't even know that you were doing or unaware of. But here's what I know and understand is that, look, when we are looking for allies or looking for people to come aside, in some cases, they don't know what they don't know. You know, Mark never knew that, hey, I carry weight of having to want to make sure that I perform and outperform at a lot higher level, because I was raised to believe that, hey, look, all things can't be equal in the boardroom. All things can't be equal in the field. I've got to stand out, or it's going to go to my white counterpart. And not that it was ingrained or beat into me, time after time after time, but it was a conversation that was had at a young age. Whether that was right or wrong, or whether that was impressed upon me, it stuck with me, and it's made me excel and always have to hold myself to a higher standard. And I think that if you find any or most successful African Americans, you're going to hear that same conclusion or story.
Yeah, and I think we also feel that we represent our race. So we want to
Yeah.
make sure that we leave a good impression with everything that we do. And so I totally understand uh, what you mean by we carry that extra weight. And I think it's part of it. We become so accustomed to it
Right.
that I had a discussion with one of my managers, and I told him, I said, he asked me if I ever felt like I had to come to work and be different. I said early on I did in my career. I said my hair doesn't look like this. You feel like you have to fit in, but at the same time, there are people again that are allies and
Right.
people who are welcoming. And so the message is not that everybody is against the African American community. The
Correct.
message is really that equality. And so I'm so thankful that we have people who are asking, how can I help? Um, I've heard in some of the conversations, I've heard people that surprised me. And because they may be married or married to someone, a non African American, and they feel like they need a voice. And so, my question to you is, should organizations only feel like they should have this conversation with their Blacks or African Americans, or should
No, not at all. Because our world is evolving. Because again, I don't think it's just an African American conversation. I think it's an inclusive conversation, because it'll benefit the group as a whole. To, hey, not just talking to Blacks, not just talking to whites, but let's bring everyone together, because we're going to be able to see these different perspectives inside that dialogue. And then, of course, my wife is white as well, but then we have these, six beautiful biracial children, and they have a completely different outlook and perspective on the world. They've got a different fit and problem. So it's not now, Black dealing in a white world or white dealing in a Black world. They're this in between. That's what I believe is the best of both worlds. And they're going, well, where do I fit or where do I not fit? And so that's a whole nother conversation to be had as well, too. So I think that, again, it's not just for African Americans or Blacks, it's for everyone to participate in this dialogue, so we can all begin to see blind spots that we have.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up we have different perspectives, and I think as a result of some of the conversations that are taking place, we're seeing that it's benefiting different um, groups of people, not just African American. And there was something that you said that kind of triggered uh, a thought for me. So one of the things that I've had asked is what's best to say, African American or Black? But and it's funny to me, but I know there's certain people that will prefer one over the other. But there's a broader question there, and the question is, are you prepared for the questions you're going to get
Right.
from people who want to be allies, right?
Right.
So what
Yeah.
would you say to the African American community about preparing ourselves for those conversations, for the questions?
Yeah. Because for me, I guess I'm not a either, because I don't find either one derogatory at all, Black or African American. And like, I'm not one to debate, well, no, I prefer to be called African American, or I prefer to be called Black. It's not derogatory in the sense of the other words that can be used to describe us, like, so it's not that, okay? So I'm okay with going either way. But, I think that is a starter question, that you get is, well, hey, do you prefer Black or African American? And some African Americans or Blacks are definitive. No, we want to be called this or we want to be called that. And I think that trying to play that game of, which is politically correct, you're going to misfire anyway. I mean, so as long as it's done, I think with care and candor, I think that it'll be accepted. If it's done in a condescending or derogatory way in your context, well, then it's going to come off that way, no matter how you say it. African Americans or Blacks, it's going to come off that way. So I think if you're saying that, and tonality plays a part then, if you're doing it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, we just need to be able to be open
Yeah. Yeah.
to what comes our way, and have those conversations. Be willing to have
Yeah.
those
Absolutely.
conversations.
Yeah.
So I know that you're a very busy person, and so I am so grateful to have your time. And I'm going to wrap this up.
Okay.
Before I wrap it up, is there anything else that you would like to share? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I think, as we talk about these turbulent times, I think the best piece of content that I've come across so far, because at the end of the day, we need to look to be bridge builders, whether we're Black, white, Asian, Latino. Look, we're in a place right now where everything is trying to divide, creating a us or we versus one another. And this is a time more than ever that we need to figure out a way to build bridges and gaps. One of the most prolific speakers that I have seen and read on this topic right now, John Maxwell, recently interviewed Miles McPherson. And he has a book that I can't wait to get in my hands called The Third Option, which is truly about not a me versus you, but a we solutions that he gives on this topic of racial divide. And I love that he talks about in groups and out groups. And I think that it's going to give some great context and, thought around what it is that we can do. But at the end of the day, as long as we're seeking to add value to people, build bridges between communities and people, this world will be a better place. But it's up to us. It starts with us, and we've got to begin to do that today.
well, thank you, Chris. I
Yeah.
thank you for your time, and as always, you have such a great insight and information. And I hope that I can have you on for another topic in the
Absolutely.
future, but I won't take too much of
You
your
got it.
time. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm going to leverage John Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connects, and use that from a diversity and inclusion stance. So I'm going to be
Great.
offering some study sessions on that and connecting in terms
Yeah.
of diversity and finding common ground. I think that's the number
Absolutely.
one thing. The number
Yeah.
one thing. Well, Chris Robinson, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I forgot to say he's one of my mentors, but I
Yeah.
thank you so much, Chris, for
You're
joining. And I'll keep watching what you're doing, and I'll keep up with you. And thanks again. You have a
All
great
right.
day, and
All
thank
right.
you everyone for joining this session.
Thanks a lot, Nicole.
Goodbye.
Thanks for having me.